Okay, it's getting ready to pull up.
I'm trying to find it online. Maybe
And
not here. Oh, there it is.
there you go. You're live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Evolution JKD. This is Interview with an Artist, and I am joined today by my really good friend, Ray Anthony Height. I just call him Ray because we go way back. Like way back, like I was at his wedding way back. Ray, you and Shayla came to our wedding, didn't you?
Absolutely.
We did. I was sitting there, and then I
Yeah.
was like, I remember them there, and I was
Yeah.
and anyway, and then I actually went through and I looked at one of my photo books.
Sifu Joe, hold on. You guys
Uh,
don't have sound yet. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Give me one
oh,
second.
then we'll do that all again.
No,
Yeah.
you're
There you
you're
go.
okay. I'm just getting this set up to make sure that you have sound. I don't know why it's not coming through. Give me one second.
Okay.
You guys are live, but the sound isn't working.
Okay.
Okay, say something.
Something.
Something. Okay. Hold on one second.
It looks a little glitchy on mine. Like the feed is cutting in and out.
The feed is cutting in and out.
Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties. Just bear with us.
It's
Um,
just the off. Yeah, she's boss, man. She's boss.
Your wife has been
Um,
boss forever. She's been
yeah, yeah.
boss the entire
And
time I've
getting
known her.
her, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Great. This is my it's my best buddy, you know. Um, we were just talking about that today. Like we you see couples that come in and out of your lives, whatever,
Mhm.
and when it's always something we see most of the couples who are like super tight, they always say, "Oh yeah, my partner is my best friend," and all that.
Hi, there she is. I love you so much.
I knew she was gonna do that. I knew she
Oh,
was
I
gonna
love
do
it.
that,
I love it. I love
right?
it. I miss you so
This is the
much.
only one, Joel, that she's like, okay, I'm gonna just bust in on you. I was waiting for
You could totally do this. Oh,
that. Yep, yep,
oh,
yep.
oh.
So, yeah, no, yeah, they're fixing the thing. So, Joel asked, "How are you doing?" We're gonna talk about you right now.
Yeah,
But
I can hear you
so
in.
so hold on. She
Oh,
okay.
we're on.
Oh,
That's
okay.
right.
We're on.
That's right.
You're on. We're
Everyone.
live.
So hold on. No, no, no. You can
Wait,
stay here.
wait,
So
wait.
everyone, this is my friend Ray Anthony Height, and this is his amazing wife Shayla. And actually, that's how I met Ray.
Yeah.
Uh, is someone I was dating at the time. Worked with Shayla, and we became friends. And they're just lovely people. I was at their wedding. It was fantastic. They were at my wedding to someone else, who I'm still currently married to. She's just out of town for work, so she would be here running it as well, but she's literally out of town for work. um Pretty exciting. And then whoa, camera's going all over the place. Oh, we got to
Uh-oh.
fix. Sorry for technical difficulties. It happens sometimes in this world. Just glitches in there, and we are just taking I was taking the advantage to just be able to say hi to Shayla, because it's kind of tough when you've got friends who are so amazing, but you've made those life choices, and separated by thousands of miles, it makes it a bit tough to hang out and see each other. So we
But not
fortunately
separated by anything else, just distance, just
just
physical
distance.
proximity.
With social media and with all this
Yeah.
stuff, we get to hang out more. So it's really cool.
Well, exactly.
And Shayla, we're going to be talking about you in this episode of Interview with an Artist as well. Well, no, because I was
Joel, I
back there.
talk about her on every interview, though. The only
I
difference
know
is
what you
it's,
should.
you know, yeah,
I actually know her,
right,
and I know how wonderful she really is.
right. There you go.
So we're going to jump into this and go into a bunch of questions. And the biggest one for this is this whole thing with Interview with an Artist. This whole idea for me came from actually you, Ray, from following you on just social media, Facebook. You had Facebook pages, and I would see these great, you would post up something, and then there would be like 30, 40, 50, 60 comments between you and other artists talking about your craft and what you were putting into it and all these things. And I remember just gleaning out all this information. So my original idea is inspired by you and that interaction, and my literal gains as an artist myself from you. Even though our expression is different, there's so many commonalities, and I'm hoping that everybody here today will be able to gain something from that as well, because it really is, it's part of the journey and the effort to put into it, but the way your brain twists and all of those things coming in um, really is on a different level. And I got a lot more depth of understanding and knowledge. And this isn't like one post, folks. This is me seeing like multiple posts over a long period of time, and just continuing to grow and have insight and perspective for myself. And that's been really cool. So as we go through this, everybody, if you come up, whatever kind of artist you are, if you think of yourself as an artist, whether you're a professional or a hobbyist or just somebody who enjoys art or appreciates it or wants to know something more, do ask, whether you're a graphic artist, whether you're a martial artist, whether you're a performance artist, whether you're a musician, any of those things. Ask these questions, because it's really a great chance to ask a wonderful person who has come from the ground, the grassroots, and built his career up with the lovely support of his amazing wife, and worked all the way through there. So that's what I want to share through this, and I got a ton of questions. So when I come over here to read, it's just so many things, and I hope we get to all of them. If we don't, I'm going to ask you to come back.
Of course. Hey, I'm always ready.
Yeah. And Shayla, Ray knows this, but I'm in Sonoma in end of June. I'll be in Sonoma, California, end of June. So we might figure that out. And I don't know. I'm seeing one other set of friends who live up in like Walnut Creek, but I don't know. We'll figure it. I just always like to let my friends know. I know it's a little bit to get from LA to the Bay Area, but just in case, I know you do travel for several Comic Cons and large events that are going on all over the place. So if it worked out, and if I have to drive a little bit, I'm fine with that. It'd be fine.
Somewhere in the middle. Right?
So I miss hugs.
You can listen on YouTube. Get your phone out.
I am listening.
So let's get into, so Ray, you've worked on a ton of things. You've worked with Marvel on Spider-Man, Luke Cage, and I know that there's different strata of Spider-Man. There's like Amazing Spider-Man. There's different ones that go and follow different storylines. And I'm going to tell everybody, like, I don't know all that stuff. I read comics, and then I enjoy them, and then I'm kind of okay from there. But I don't
That's
remember
exactly
all
how
this.
you're supposed to do it.
I love the art, and it is
weeds.
so much more into it. So here is Ray's going to tell us exactly what you do, because there are different levels to it of building into a comic. So, me, I just pick a comic book up and it's like, oh, it's by this people. And there's a bunch of names on the front, and then I open it up and I just get lost in the story, and I love all that. But Ray, which part of that? So can you take everybody through sort of the Cliff Notes version of what it is you do and where that fits into, and I think you've actually worked on several levels of this as well, of coming through there, and then maybe which is your favorite one to do, if you have one. I don't even know if that's even possible, but go for it. And
Okay.
share, what do you do, and what does that mean in the sort of the production of building a comic book?
Well, typically, comics have, I want to say, five major parts. There's the editor, there's a penciler, there's
Mhm.
a writer, an inker, a colorist, well, six, a letterer. So that's your basic flat. I have penciled for Marvel and DC. I have penciled and inked and done
Mm.
cover work. So, and the cover work, sometimes the main artist will do the covers,
Mhm.
but a lot of times it's another artist who, let's say, because that's a whole other set of skills to be able to produce a cover that draws new readers in.
Mhm.
So that's a whole thing. But that's a whole other set. But I've been able to do both of those. I've been able to do cover art, and I've also been able. I mostly do interior artwork,
Okay.
and it's all bound together in one story. Where I think in the beginning, when I first started and I was breaking all that stuff down, one of the best pieces of advice that I got, at least back then, was figure out one discipline. Now, I used to do comics on my own. I put out a comic when I was 19, independent, with a bunch of friends,
Mhm.
without Marvel and DC. And that was pretty cool. Definitely kind of like give you an idea how everything works, um, until you actually get in, and then you understand, like, that's the difference between playing high school basketball and playing professional basketball.
Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah.
it's a different level.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so you do mostly penciling and inside work. And
Yes.
now here's a question for that, because I've seen stuff where, growing up as a kid, you're reading comic books, but then you're also reading newspaper comics and coming through
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And I remember one of the things that was a surprise to me was finding out that a lot of the people who were putting in, like Schultz, I saw that he had giant things, and it was a great big, and a lot of them, you're seeing a little tiny in a newspaper, but actually what they were working on was a great big piece of art,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
that was taken and then used for the print stuff. So it's two-part question. One, I are there different sizes, or do you do
Yes.
how big? How so? Do you work, because inside there's different size paneling?
Mhm.
Do you pick how big the panel is? Is that like preset storyboard of, like, we want it this big, so you're going to draw in there, and then you kind of size up to something, that's relative to that, or um, is do you yeah, because the comic books are really known for having different size pictures inside of them.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know beforehand how big that is? And then do you draw according to, like, a set pattern kind of thing of, like, okay, Ray, we need it to be this size, so to draw on a piece of paper this big,
Yeah.
and then hand that into the people to do it? Is that how it works? Or explain that one
So
to everyone.
you're asking some really good questions, and they're so good that they could be their own show, basically. Yeah, it could be their own show because the digital age changed everything.
Oh, wow.
Uh, yeah. So when they used to have plates and everything, like you were talking about Schultz. So back in those
Mhm,
days, and he did everything. So he wrote it, he penciled, ink, whatever. It was just one voice. Most of us now, that's what we're trying to get to, the
mhm.
one voice. In Japan, they have that as well, when they do manga. So, but for the most part, they used to be huge. Used to be
Yeah,
these huge things, and then they have these big scanners. They scan them in and they reduce them, and so that you can see the detail.
yeah.
Some of the detail gets lost, but and so comics used to be like regular comic book pages used to be like 11 by 17 or greater. I want to
Mhm.
say it was like it was huge pieces, beautiful pieces of artwork. Actually, once it was
Yeah.
done. Um, and then when the digital age came, you know, 50, 60, whatever years later, uh, I do a lot of my work um, on 8.5 by 11, and then I
Nice.
scan it in at 600 DPI.
Yeah.
So, and then I can do whatever I want, and then send it to the editors at 600 DPI. So if they print it, it could be huge. It prints out pretty huge. So that's changed. But before, I would say in the last before the last 15 years,
Mhm.
uh, everything was done 11 by 17. So you penciled, inked, or whatever. And then even before then, they put the letters on top of the actual artwork instead of scanning in the artwork, then
And
putting the
then
letters in digitally.
Oh, so
you see,
your
yeah,
actual artwork is actually preserved. So even if you're doing that, and then you're also able to create inside of more of your comfort zone. You're not having to adapt to someone else's sort of framework. You can work within your
yes.
own framework and do that. So if you did want to go a little bit bigger, you
So,
could. If you want to go a little bit smaller, you
but
could,
that's
and
the
it doesn't
second part of
matter.
your question. Well, that's it. That's the second part. So you talk about the predisposed panels, whatever. There's some techniques. So here's a crossover. In martial arts, there's definitely a way that you learn. There's techniques that you practice, which is very different than, I was listening to one of your other shows where we were talking about the difference between sport versus actual fighting versus, um, and that's kind of the difference when you think about illustrating. So when you're working for a company, there's these books that you learn how to do the job. You
Hmm.
learn there's a 9 panel grid, right? It's like a form. So you learn the 9 panel grid. Once you master the 9 panel grid, you can
Hmm.
do whatever you want. You don't even have to use all 9 panels or whatever, but that's old school. There was a way you used to do it before.
Yeah.
But as time moves on, as things change, as things evolve, what happens is you change up. So now it's not squares anymore. It's these hexagons or parallelograms, whatever you
Yeah.
can use.
So what I tell everybody, so if you're watching this is one of the things where I'm talking about it. So Ray is talking about all this stuff from his world and how they're evolving and growing. And it is one of the reasons why my school's named this. Martial arts has done the same thing. So that you might have used an old school kata, but as science is coming in, even Bruce Lee was looking at this of weight training. And if you look at modern sports athletes in UFC or boxing, the way they train, the way they develop themselves as athletes and martial artists is evolved and grown because of science and applying that scientific knowledge to it. So scanners and digital age coming in there, well, it's the same thing for us with all this new understanding of nutrition or how to do weight training or resistance training or how to develop yourself as an athlete. I mean, same thing you see in Olympic athletes. An Olympic athlete today compared to an Olympic athlete 100 years ago or a baseball player. The baseball players today compared to a baseball player, like Babe Ruth, like the athletic level of Babe Ruth compared to the athletic level of anybody in the majors right now, um, is huge because of what they do, and it's all built upon the people who came before you. We're all learning from
Mhm.
there, and it makes it. I mean, can you imagine trying to build all of this from scratch? And as a
No,
martial artist, we don't build things from scratch. We borrow and build upon what we've been given, and that's a pretty cool thing. So all the techniques, and we're having more questions about techniques and stuff. We
well,
haven't
that's
even
exactly
gotten
it. That's it.
we
You just
haven't even
explained
gotten in. We're only on the second page,
it.
and I've got like giant print so I can read it without my glasses.
Dude.
Um, so here's another question for that. So doing the penciling, so you're a little bit further in the beginning process of that.
Yeah.
Are you ever surprised, or are you often surprised, or are you never surprised about the end product? Do you ever
I'm
look at
always
that and go like,
surprised.
you're always surprised?
Mhm. I'm always
That's
surprised.
cool.
Yeah. That's what makes it fun. And there's challenges, right? So, I get a script and every writer is different. So, some are extremely detailed and they like things just so going kind of leaning back into the older question about is it dictated what type of size panel. Sometimes they give suggestions. Oh, we want a close up with this and this and this and this, and there's a car and there's the bad guy's getting out of the car, he's got on a black suit with a red tie. It's everything's super detailed,
Hmm.
down to the stitch on a collar, you know what I mean, like, and then other writers will say, okay, here's the scene. These two people are having an argument. It's the protagonist and their best friend, and the mood is somber, right? So then they're leaning on the artist to say, okay, how do I depict this? I know what these characters look like. I already
Hmm.
know where the setting is. The rest is all up to me. I figure it out. Whether it's a close up, whatever, and that's when the skills come into play.
And both of those would be, I think, challenging in different ways
Yeah.
and enjoyable in different ways. And I was like, well, you go this way, but I think people would gravitate to one or the other as a preference, and I think that a lot of people would go either way.
Yeah.
Which way do you go? Which one do you like? Do you want someone to give you that challenge of a super detail, or do you want someone to give you the challenge of like, okay, X, Y, and Z, give me everything else?
When I very first started out, I was an amateur. I liked more detail.
Hmm.
Because I wanted to learn. I wanted to have like, okay, this is someone's vision, and part of the fun, we're talking about the fun of it, is bringing someone's vision to life.
Yeah.
So that's cool, and to kind of add the thing in. But then I thought, depending on who you got, some of them it was very constraining, you know. So and the way the panels broke down, they just wouldn't fit, at least for me, and the way I story told. So
Uh-huh.
I would say, but that lasted, I don't know, a few years. Once I got the hang of it,
Uh-huh.
once I knew I liked the loose. Just give me the plot. That's what I love now, and I'll make this happen, and that comes out with the best
Just
result.
inspire my creativity
That's
and let
it.
me go. Yeah.
Yeah, as long as I have the story and I get the points right, if at the end of this page, someone is supposed to walk away and feel anger based on what the conversation was,
Mm,
I have enough experience on how to lay that out and to convey that by the end of the
nice.
page. That's my goal. So,
I find, for myself, I teach an online class, and I just got into the point where I said, "Hey, you know what, gang? Uh, just just ask me questions." Everybody's asking me questions from wherever they were. What do you want to work on? And I don't set, usually like my regular classes, I set up and I get this where I get inspired. So I come into class and, I say, well, this is loosely what I'm going to work on. It's sort of what you're talking about. Like, we're going
yeah,
to do this. And then it depends on how many people are in class, what the energy is in the class, and who's asking questions, what skill levels we're working on. And that's going to bring out different things depending on that. But it's a loose thing. And then an even bigger challenge is doing all of that, but then someone else is giving me what we're teaching, and I found that to be really great for me as an artist to challenge and grow. And I find like, hey guys, thanks, because I'm always really thankful at the end of my online classes because they come in with these great questions, and
mhm,
they bring out the artist in me and the knowledge, and I get to exercise it maybe in a way I wasn't thinking about. And do you find that's true for you, that sometimes you're inspired to create more by somebody?
well, I'm going to flip the question back to you.
All right.
So I mean, I'm clearly stalking you online too. So I'm seeing your classes, and I'm seeing how attentive and really like, there's a connection even in pictures and some of the videos that you have with your students. Um, so I'm asking you, is there, each class has a different flow or no? Is there a
Every
different
class is
energy
unique.
flow?
Every
Yes.
class is unique. As you're creating, it's the same thing, and that's why it's I was having a previous conversation on this sort of interview with not this sort of, with this interview with an artist, with one of my mentors, Sensei Chadwick Minj. And he said it's the difference between being a martial mechanic, someone who's just
Mm,
doing it, and a martial artist who is expressing themselves and coming
yes.
through. And it just naturally sort of flows. And in the moment, and you're creating in that moment, you're not fixed in a, I have to do a fixed pattern of movements and that's all I can do.
Right.
Can you create within that fixed pattern? And we see this in artists everywhere, and that's the true gift. Whether you're singing a song, you're drawing a picture, you're acting. How many actors? Well, they have a script, just like you have a script, and then they
Right.
have to express themselves in there to the best of their ability, and that's pretty cool. And that's what we're doing it here. And whether I'm moving with someone, whether you and I are moving together, or you're fighting. Ultimately, I haven't laid hands on somebody and with intent for like a dozen years since I stopped working security in Hollywood. But I still have some great students that I get to move with, and they challenge me, and they bring out that creativity, because then it's the artist who's spontaneously reacting and creating. Do you ever draw something? Like, going back to you, do you ever just draw something and go, "Oh, well, that wasn't what I was thinking, but that's really cool."
I like to call
And
those happy accidents. Yeah,
the happy
absolutely.
accidents of
Yeah.
things, and that's it. And it's not that you're making garbage, or it's not there, but just something flowed in the middle of the process where I guess for you, the Ray, the professional, steps to the side for just a second, and Ray, the artist, just sort of took it somewhere that
Yeah.
maybe you didn't originally intend, and doing that. And I find that with martial arts for me, that I okay, this is what we're doing, and then someone does like the Scott, one of my guys, one of my senior guys here. Uh, I had to call him out for this in class because I was like, Scott, stop doing that, because he'll just try to counter me just to see what I'll do. He's like, I'll take a hit, it's fine. And I'm like, no, 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 we got to show them what the drill is so that they can learn it at the beginner level. We'll play with that stuff later. Where he'll
I
just
like Scott already.
yeah, there's something else just thrown in there, and the artistic side takes over, which is really really fun. Um, all right, so we're gonna get into some questions, some other questions in here.
Okay.
All right, so a little bit of history for you, and I know you've been doing this, and we've had previous conversations. So these questions are really for everybody else to help you sort of get the sense of what it is to be a life as an artist, and some of those travels, because it is a unique path and it's different for everybody else, and we can always draw inspiration from other artists, whatever their ups and downs are. When did you get into drawing, and
Mm.
when did you start to realize that you were pretty good at it?
That's a two-part. So, getting the drawing, I would say maybe 4 or 5. It was an escape, you know,
Yeah,
just having fun. Yeah, and at that age, everybody's drawing, right?
yeah, everybody's
Everybody's
drawing,
doing.
but
Yeah.
like when did you start to realize that, like, you were drawing stuff and I was next to you drawing stuff, and yours was just way better than mine?
Well, I'll say what I noticed that was the people. So they would stop. We were all drawing, and then they would stop to look at mine, and then there was other people who weren't drawing that came to look.
Yeah.
So
And how old
that's
how old were you then?
I was in elementary school, so I don't know. I want to say first or second grade.
Oh, wow.
It
So
was
like that's been in there for a long time. I'm gonna say
yeah, yeah.
6-year-old Ray was drawing better than I can right now.
Well, I
Um,
think that's the wonder. Before I never understood because there's a mysticism, right? And we talk about the crossover yet again.
mhm,
There's a mysticism between being able to draw and create out of thin air,
mhm,
and a mysticism with martial arts at the same time, right? So, and for people who are doing it, the artists who are doing these things, that it's two-part. It is the lesson, and it is the, let's say, the craftsmanship
mhm.
of it, the love, the passion, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
keeps you going. That's the thing, that you take what is taught and you make it your own. It becomes a part of you, and then you just kind of
That's a
like
big one
run.
for everybody. So, it's not just copying. And Ray really, this is why I listen to this guy. This is why I find inspiration. And I hope everybody's seeing. If you're martial artists watching this, I hope you see the parallels, because they are there. That Bruce Lee was talking about. That's the uniqueness. The make it your own isn't just to replicate. It's not to just. I mean, you can just put it in a copier if you're going to do that. But
Yeah.
having somebody, Ray has drawn characters that we've all seen, we all know, but they're unique. But they're still, it's still Spider-Man. It's still whoever the
Right.
character is. We all instantly know who the character is, but it's still unique. And I think that's because he's drawn it himself. That freehand, and that's sort of the thing of having the idea, the understanding of what a hit is, but creating it from the beginning, and understanding that it needs to hit, it needs to sort of have those certain things to be a jab or to be an uppercut, but it's still going to be unique, and it's still going to have its own individuality. And every time you do it, so just like if you draw something, you draw one panel and you draw the next one, they're going to look, like, to me, I'm like, that's the same person. I'll know that it's different poses, but it's totally new creations every time. So every drawing and every movement are always going to be new creations. Who, other than being a kid, like, who inspired you to draw, like, more, not just like a kid drawing, but to, like, hey Ray, like, you're pretty good, you should draw? Who,
Huh.
or
Wow.
that could be flipped around. Who, maybe there was art that you were seeing, or what comics you were reading as a kid that you were like, wow, this character was so cool. So you would just be that kid drawing that character. What sort of, was there anything in particular that sort of that got into it, or was it like I was reading these sets of comics, or I was reading I was reading every comic on the stand as you sit there with the little spinny one as we did as kids.
Oh yeah, the spinner rack was great.
The
I
spin
was a
rack was
seven.
amazing.
Yeah, like, and you could go anywhere. Remember, you could go like the grocery store, you can go to
Yep.
7-Eleven, you can go
Yep.
wherever. They were
Yep.
everywhere. That is not the
Mom
case
mom was
anymore.
shopping and I was sitting at the spinner rack.
Yep,
Um,
that's it.
yeah.
And she knew where to
So
find you.
yes.
So,
So who did you have any of those inspirations that you could sort of nail
oh yeah,
into? All right, well, who
for
are they?
sure. So say when you talk about the books, I read everything.
Yeah.
I spent so much time at the library, so it wasn't just like comic books. I was actually what started for me was the comic strips. So my dad would buy the newspaper, and he would always
Mhm.
give me the comic strips. So that's where I started as a kid, and I would see all those things there. Peanuts and uh, Little Abner and the Boondocks, and well, Boondocks came later, but Spider-Man used to be
We're
there
older
too.
than that, buddy. We're older than
Yeah, yeah.
Boondocks.
Yeah. We're much older than the Boondocks. So I think, yeah, because Aaron Magruder is younger than we are. So, but yeah, it was that stuff. And then I didn't know that there were Spider-Man comics until because I watched the cartoons and I would be inspired by cartoons. I was drawing more
Mhm.
cartoon stuff than comics
Mm.
until about, I don't know, I was 10, 11, and my cousin introduced me to, a lot of Marvel comics. So,
Which
uh,
I gotta say for everybody is way harder because if you think about it, like if I have a comic book right here, and I had so I wrestled with it with a guy Sean Colbert who would always draw. He was the guy who could draw, and he would take, he always take the very stylized. I think he would grab like the old Conan uh big comics that they would have, and he'd have those. And then we were in
that
high
was on
school,
my
and
first.
yeah, and he would plop it down and have a sketch pad, and he would draw these big pages of doing it. And we were, he was the guy we were, like, "Oh," to see how cool it was. But you were doing this without even having something to reference. You were like watching it and then just remembering it and keeping it in your imagination, doing which I would think for everybody else that's way harder to do. To maintain, you can't constantly reference something. You don't get to look at someone else doing a movement, whether it's a martial arts movement or a dance movement, or someone playing a piano next to you. It's like someone hearing music when you see a musician and they hear some
Yep.
music and then they play it and you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's having and doing this as a kid, at whatever level, but that it's setting the artist already, and I think it goes into a lot of the mindset of it. um
No, that's exactly pinpoint accurate. Like you would remember things, and I was drawing Mighty Mouse and stuff like that as a kid, but I think that's what shaped me more of a storyteller than just
Mhm.
an artist. I consider myself more of a storyteller because I like to make my own things up.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't love the other stuff that came out. I did, but I would take those characters, or I say, "Oh, what if there was a character like this?" And I just go on these long tangents about that.
That is an amazing segue into
Ah,
the next thing. So, if you didn't catch on before, his wife Shayla is amazing, and they have two children, both grown. But coming in as a father, um, and I say this because I'm a white male, and as a little boy growing up, every freaking story was geared towards me. So it was
mm,
pretty easy, you go through there. Now I have a son and a daughter, and when my son started reading, he was getting into, and both of them, they're both still into it. Elliot goes into the other stuff. He's a little bit older now, but Quinn is really eating up these graphic novels, which is amazing. So one of the first things I did for Elliot was I gave him a graphic novel with a great story that did not have a white male character as the
mm.
lead. And I thought that was really important. I want him to see a female, main character, and that was really important. And then I start throwing them other characters and finding this, and it's been something that's come up a lot in the last decade or two, where it's like, hey, why don't we have more variety in characters? With storytelling from there. Um, So I've done this, and you being a storyteller want to do this. How important was it for you to create characters and expose your own children to and other people's children as an artist to expose them to characters who were not white male because there's plenty of them. I mean, there's we were talking about this earlier. Even in the Spider-Man world,
Yeah.
we're both really excited about the new Spider-Man coming out, the animated one, with Miles Morales as the lead character instead of Peter Parker. And my Elliot loves it. We geek out on this. Like that's going to be one of our big ones to do. And there's other things. Whoa! I just heard through my. If you hear some, we have a storm outside. So if this
I
thing
heard
cuts
that too.
out, if this thing cuts out, then crazy. But I threw. Yeah. So if you catch background on there, sorry, it's just the storm is blowing in. If I cut out, we'll pick this up another time.
Wow.
But picking up and you've also worked on the comic series for Wakanda Forever, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that was another one that came out. My kids loved that. When Catherine and I went to the theater to see that, we're like, this is amazing. And afterwards, the kids were watching it at home, and then it was just super fantastic. And I think people are realizing that there are such rich characters that you don't have to be, and there's so much diversity, and it makes for better storytelling, I think. So how
Yeah.
important is that for you as an artist and a person who creates their own product to put that out there and to be that source of storytelling that tells those other voices?
Well, I feel like because I mean, first of all, I remember when you started doing that with Quinn and Elliot, and I thought it was fantastic. But here's the cool thing. The cool thing is, and one of the reasons why even though I work for DC Comics too, why I love Marvel. Marvel used to say, we tell stories that are about the world outside your window.
Hmm.
And the world outside my window included all kinds of folks, not
Hmm.
just, a specific type, the heroic white male, right?
Yeah.
Uh, um, and it was even less so where even with the women were more, you know, well, I mean, I don't want to say objectified, but let's just say you were there to look a certain way and not
Hmm.
necessarily have any agency.
Yeah.
So, and it wasn't for everything, and that's one thing I don't like. I don't like to say always and
Yeah.
never. There's no such thing. Very few
Yeah.
things in life are are like that, but there was an abundance of that.
Yeah.
So,
And that's it. As
yeah,
fathers, we don't want our sons to grow up thinking, because we have partners who we don't think of that way.
right, exactly, and
You know,
that's the other part of it, right? Because there's an example. There's an example that they have in the home versus what the media chooses to show them, and
mhm,
it doesn't work. Like Lauren, my daughter. There's this commercial where the mom leaves and the
mhm.
dad is completely inept, and then there's like food on the walls and it's a
Mhm.
disaster and he doesn't know that. She hated that commercial
'Cause it's the old
because
stereotype that dads are the babysitter instead of, like, the
yeah,
parent.
exactly. And she's like, that's not how it is in my house. Like,
Yeah,
you know, yeah, it was almost like an insult to her.
yeah.
But yeah,
Or
so it's the
showing
same
that
way.
mom just stays at home and
Yeah,
is a
oh yeah.
caregiver instead of mom having a career and doing stuff. It's like, well, that doesn't work for me, and that's not the inspiration I wanna have for my daughter, and it's not the way I want my son to look at the world.
Right.
And when I teach martial arts, all my classes, especially my kids' classes, and that's where I really find the best is um, the boys and girls. Some classes will be almost all boys, and actually, I've got a few classes that are predominantly girls. But the girls get in there and move, and I always love that with whether the kids or the teenagers or the adults of coming in and finding that empowerment, especially for the kids, of inspiring them that they can and helping prop them up to say, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
Do
that's
not be
exactly it.
limited by what some other stereotype has come before, and recreate yourself and your own story and do that, be the inspiration. And I think that's really cool that we do. Let me see what other question.
Well, I
we
would
cut-
add, Joel, like it's
oh
kind of
yeah.
like the Matrix for the Matrix fans, right? Where that scene where the kid tells Neo there is no spoon,
Hmm.
right? That's kind of the way you want to run your household, which you want to run the world. Like, you know, the thing that they say is blocking you isn't really there.
Yeah.
You could do whatever it is you want to do. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff I like to write. That's the kind of stuff I like to read and put out there. So yeah.
I'm going to add in that we've covered some of these stuff all in there. I guess a quick one is how do you keep yourself inspired? Is it just the people you're working with? Is there something outside of your art that you do that is, is there some specific thing where you go to like, kind of feeling low, I'm going to go over here? Is it other artists you go to, or is it another, like I go listen to music? Is it
I
just
do that.
watching? Do you listen to music just to sort of
I,
lose yourself?
yeah, I listen to music. I might read. I love spending time with Shayla, and we watch some crazy stuff, or we might be watching a show like Hoarders, or we watch, we have a lot of shows like Supernatural or
Hmm.
whatever we're doing, and sometimes that kind of like break from thinking about work
Hmm.
opens myself up to think differently, or it's conversation. I love good conversations, with people who have something to say, different points of view.
Hmm.
I absolutely love that, which so
Yes.
it'll spark so much stuff. It's like, you know what, now these things that I was stuck on, I could use a little bit of that inspiration that I got. It's a different point of view, way to think. Let me attach that to this. So it's stuff like that.
I think that's we're gonna come back in this sort of the way you think, and Ray, you're bringing this up of I've had conversations with other people, and being an artist, you think one way, being a graphic artist, being a musician, you might think a different way. Your brain turns that way to go into it. As a martial artist, my brain turns that way. If you're an engineer, your brain turns that way. Some people are like,
Yes.
I like to write words. Some people are like, I like to draw. Some people are like, I like to make music, and some people, or I like math and I want to do numbers. And um, your brain goes that way. But there's also stuff where you have to have natural talent in what you're doing, of coming into it. And how much do you think natural talent? And there's gonna be follow-up questions to this too, so don't worry about that. Do you think natural talent plays a huge part in reaching your level? So drawing is one thing, the kid's drawing in there, but do you think everybody can reach your level?
Yes. I
Do you
but there's some caveats to that. So one of the philosophies, again, when I grew up, which actually made me gravitate towards more Eastern philosophy, because I grew up in Compton,
Mhm.
and there was a lot of violence during that time in the 80s and 90s. And I was looking for peace. I mean, hell, I was a pacifist for a good click of time. But one of the things that I enjoy about some of that philosophy is that hard work beats talent, period.
I like that. Yep.
So
I still don't think
there's
that I can draw at your level. I don't think I
no,
draw it.
but if you worked hard and I stopped. So let's say there's a difference. If
All
we're
right, that's fair.
starting
That's
at,
fair.
yeah, right. So that's the thing. If we started here and I was like, I'm talented, I don't have to work that hard, blah blah blah, whatever, and I never practice, I just, oh, okay, I'm going to do the thing. And here you are, you're starting here, right?
Yep.
And I am sitting here, resting here, and you're constantly at it every day, hour after hour after hour after hour
I can
after
agree with
hour.
that.
Yeah, you're here because you probably have seen it in class, right? They're
I have.
resting
I
on
I
natural
do
talent.
think I do think if you take two people, all right, say two people who are working equally hard,
Yeah.
does talent still play a part?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's so talent will be the edge, because all
Talent
talent
would be
is
the edge. Okay,
it will be
that's a
the
really
edge.
great way to put it. Talent
It's a
is the
natural
edge.
aptitude, right?
Okay.
Because people
And
come in and they can get a technique like that because it's the way their
their
brain and
brain twists.
body. Yeah, exactly. And others, let's say what takes, one student a day to really get down, it might take the next student a week. But the roots of that week are strong,
Yep.
right? That's locked, right? So whatever, and it could be this, right? All over and over again. You need something to reach.
Now we're going right into it, which is the follow-up question to this. is, do you think that everyone can gain something positive from your art,
Yeah, absolutely.
whether they're doing it themselves or just observing it and enjoying it as a consumer?
I would say absolutely.
No.
That's the issue that I have with a lot of the government systems taking art and all kinds of art out of school.
That is one of the big follow-up questions. Is it's literally the next question. How important do you think it is to keep art in schools? And this goes into one of the things that we had talked about previously, of of going through there, of having art in school. And maybe if you'd like to share some of your own personal journey with that and your thoughts on art in school and why it's important.
Well, I mean, just think about it. Art expands the mind in order to apply it to a different way. So let's say if I mean, I've even heard engineers, scientists who really their pastime is in a craft of some type
Hmm.
because there's flexibility in the arts, right? It teaches you, the arts teaches you adaptability,
Hmm.
creativity, right? Because
Martial
that
artists,
means
listen to what he's saying. Listen to what
it's the
he's
same.
saying. It's
So
the same.
that's the thing, Joel. I did the same thing when I started studying martial arts as a kid. And let me tell you
Hmm.
how crazy this is. This is probably why you and I got along from day one, is that each one helped me,
Hmm.
right? Each side helped me, because you have to expand your mind a little bit, to be flexible. Because let's say there's one technique that works for somebody who's 6 feet, right?
Yep.
But then that same technique won't work for somebody who's 5'4".
Yep.
You have to learn how to adapt. So,
Absolutely.
and it's the same thing with any type of art, music, whatever. So,
One of the things we talk about in class all the time, because in my adult class, I don't want to teach the knuckle dragger school where we come in and we just
mm,
beat the crap out of each. It's not my thing. I've been there, done that. I can throw down, but as a teacher and a person who's trying to reach out to people who very likely won't ever be in a physical altercation, when you've got a 50-year-old man who's like, I've got a career and kids and family, and I've never been in a fist fight in my life. You're
yeah,
like, congratulations, that's awesome. But how does that art help him from then? And I find for a lot of my students, they come in because they are professionals and they are experts in their field, and they're not really you don't want them to make mistakes in their field, right? The expectation is you don't make mistakes anymore. But this
right,
allows them to come into somewhere else and make those mistakes and sort of exercise that muscle that got them to the level where they are right now. And I think that's been one of the greatest things for me. And I always love it when someone else comes in because they are an engineer, they are this, and it's a two-way road. I think people don't realize how much it's a two-way road when you're working with somebody, no matter what position you're in. And I'm sure in your line, somebody comes in and say, okay, I've got a script for it. Here you go, Ray. And is it a little bit of that where you get inspiration from each other, or have
it's
you
a lot
flipped
of
it around?
that.
A lot of that, and
It's a lot of that.
it's super fantastic of coming around. Um, okay. Questions,
But
questions. I've got so many. Oh, you have
yeah,
more
I know,
stuff.
right? Well, yeah, because I'm not sure if we actually answered the question, but basically, yeah, I think so. That's why I
Oh, we
consider
didn't answer
myself
the
a
question. We got off
storyteller.
on a
We
tangent.
didn't. We got on a tangent, which
We
we
got the
do.
answer.
But but yeah, I that's why I consider myself a storyteller, because
Hmm.
the art is a means to tell the story. So you can enjoy the art, but that's drawing you in, right? And then it's kind of like meeting an attractive person, right? The attraction to that person draws you in, but the
Hmm.
conversation keeps you there. It keeps you
Yes,
interested,
it's a
right?
great way to think about it.
So that's what I feel like I want to do, and also to inspire people. It's kind of like what we talk about, like, oh, that looks cool. I want to be able to do that, you know, and that's where the aptitude comes in. It's interest plus ability, right? So that's what you're trying to do. So if I can do that, if I can, somebody can read Midnight Tiger,
Hmm. Midnight
and
Tiger, original,
yeah, yeah,
original
original
from Ray
character.
Anthony Height.
So yeah, like when you told me that the kids really enjoyed the book, that was great, right? I've had people come up to me and say, when I looked at this character, it didn't matter that the main character was black, because it was a good
I don't
story.
care. I don't care.
We like, yeah, yeah, and that's
So,
kind of it.
so you gave me a couple of another project you worked on, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur,
Oh yeah.
and which is really fantastic. And so the kids were like, "Who are you interviewing this time?" Because they're like, "Who is this?" And I was like, "Well, it's my friend Ray. Remember, he sent all the art. He sent the comic book, Moon Girl." And they're like, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah," because they go back and they read it every once in
I
a while.
love it.
And Quinn goes, She says this when she sees somebody, she's watching a show. She's not quite 9. She's 9 next month, and she's like, "I'm that character. I'm that character." She's in that phase where she's that character.
I
She's like,
love it.
"I'm Moon Girl. She's so smart." And she goes, "I really like her because she's a really
That's
smart character."
awesome.
And so I think you're absolutely right. So my daughter is blonde, blue-eyed, like all this. The character is not, but she identifies, and like you said, it doesn't matter. She's drawn in, and she loves the character and the story that's coming into it, and that's what I love about that stuff. And I think you're absolutely right on all of that. What else do we get? Oh, here's a couple of fun ones. All right, here we go
Okay,
with some fun ones.
let's go.
You and I talked about this. I'm a super geek. Um, so it was you're in Japan. I've been reading manga for a long time, manga. I've and anime as well. So, uh, favorite or the one that pops in your head right now, favorite manga?
Oh man, that's a good question. But so it was like 10
Or
or 11
any of the other
top
ones,
of
or
my
any of
head.
the ones, the manhwa, or any of those other ones, whether they're coming
Um,
from Korea or Japan or from China, any of those.
I love the fact that you're breaking it down. That's how I know you know, because you I know you know. Yeah, speaking of manhwa, I mean Veritas was really cool. That was a good one. Um, you know, man, that's a good one. Outlaw Star I liked a lot. Uh, you know, that was cool. But current, probably uh My Hero Academia right now. But of all time, maybe Full Metal Alchemist.
That's a good one.
So,
That's a really
yeah,
good
yeah,
one. That's
yeah.
a really good one. Um, yeah, I like that. Um, I know what one of your biggest ones is, and it's a big geek out for everybody. It's the original, and I'm gonna take
Unmuted.
Akira off the table. You don't get to
Yeah,
use Akira. You don't get to use it. Nobody, like you don't get to use that one
Muted.
because it's the original. It's literally why everybody our age it watches anime. What's
everybody
another
got the
anime?
bootleg.
What's another anime that you really like?
Um,
Well, I think uh
well,
the
yeah,
yeah,
uh,
they've turned it into the No Hero Academia. They've turned it into one,
yeah,
didn't they?
it's an
Yeah,
anime now. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But no, that's a good question. But I am gonna pull some from our era.
All right.
So
I'm gonna go with that. I'll
that's
go
gonna
with
be
that.
fun. Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell, solid, super
Yeah,
solid.
Ghost in the
That's
Shell. Cowboy Bebop.
Cowboy Bebop
Um,
is amazing.
Gurren Lagann. But I mean, as far as films, and Netflix is actually going to do. I think they finished it. A film that I like was Spriggan.
I did see that one.
Did you see that?
I did see that one.
It's beautiful. The story is not that cohesive, not that great. I mean, it's whatever. It's not Akira. Right? Nothing's
No,
Akira.
nothing's Akira. Nothing's ever
Nothing's
going to
Akira.
be like that's just
Um,
even the other ones. My kids really like them. All of and I'm totally blanking on the artist. It's the Studio Ghibli. Um,
oh yeah, the
that
Miyazaki
whole
films.
all of those are just super wonderful, and they're so far out. And I think for everybody, if you haven't watched them, like you got to go look them. And my kids have watched them. They're almost 9 and 11 and a half, and they watch them and love it. But they really take you on this journey. You talk about being a storyteller, where they
Yes.
take you into some place that's not normal for you. It's not in your everyday, and it really helps you go off. And martial arts does the same thing too. I mean, who's really going around kung fu fighting every day? If you are, that's you should move. Um, and some people are. I mean, I'm kung fu fighting, I guess, every day. But but as someone coming in to take martial arts with me, or someone going on a journey of reading a comic or reading an anime, I think a lot of those things are doing just what you're saying, Ray, of doing this storytelling and telling you a story that's takes me somewhere and exposes me to other people and other thought processes. And like, like you said, you're watching crazy shows with Shayla so that you get some inspiration. How much are we inspired by things? Which is going to go over this other question, which I didn't have originally, but when we were chatting in the beginning, um, how much does martial arts, because you do draw a lot of of action things, there's action and
Yeah,
superheroes and coming through, and with the battle scenes and coming through with all that. uh how much has martial arts influenced that? Do you just, because you have taken martial arts
extremely.
yourself,
Yeah,
do you draw a little bit from yourself? Do you draw a little bit from movies? Do you draw from everything? Is it just all of it of coming in?
everything, everything, and it helps to have actually been in a couple fights. So
Yeah, we don't.
because yeah,
Yeah, it does change it from the theoretical to
yeah,
the applicable, very
right,
quickly. There's a lot of people in the martial arts world who are like, "Yes, you're going to do this," and it's like, "Okay, that's fine," until the other guy is way big. You're
yes.
talking about in Compton. One of the last security teams I ran in LA. It was actually in Pasadena, and like four of the guys on the crew, really great guys, and they were all from Compton, and they were all huge guys. Ralph was 6'9", 330 solid,
Ooh,
and I
that's a
was
wall.
it's freaking. I was like, dude. I mean, and it really shifts your perspective when you're coming through there, sort of like going against a superhero of having that challenge of, like, I'm going to come up and go against, like a regular person going against a supervillain. You can't. Why do you have to have that idea of in there? But who can be and do that stuff? In all these parallels, sometimes, how are you going to, I guess that's the thing, the bravery, if you were going to
Oh
battle
yeah,
someone, is it worth it? Why are we doing this? Because that's my parking spot. No superhero is ever battling someone, which would be kind of funny, I guess. you know this is where I'm parking my, the hero mobile versus your evil, the Batmobile.
that's the story though.
Batman's
Joe. That's the
Yeah,
story. Like he's
Batman's
pissed off,
Batman's never fighting the Joker over a parking spot.
right?
Uh,
Not
you know,
unless it gets drawn, right? Not unless
yeah.
somebody
No,
writes. Yeah,
I expect you to
that's
say,
it.
no, there is an actual episode of that. And I was like, I would have been like,
You know
oh,
what? Now we've given people, anybody listening, we're giving them an idea right
there's an
there.
idea. So you've
There's an
got an
idea.
idea for it. Um,
But yeah, no, I have. I've okay, so I'll give you something that recently happened. One of my favorite collaborators, Alyssa Wong, who is now the writer of Shang-Chi,
mhm.
and oh no, Iron Fist. Sorry, she's
Iron
the
Fist.
writer of the new
Wait a
Iron
second.
Fist.
Ian, who is in the background right now, you don't know, he was on a Marvel tour and he was Ian. He was Iron Fist. And
What?
he's
That's
like
awesome.
he was flipping through the air for people and stuff. I know, it's pretty
See,
cool.
connection. What did I tell you?
Connections. There's always
So
connections, isn't there?
that's awesome. So yeah, so she's right, and it's a lot of fights in there. And I remember telling her, and she's prolific writer. Okay, so just amazing. But she also wrote a lot of the Dr. Afro, which that's how we met. Anyway, um, so I told Alyssa that because the writing that was on Afra, which made me love the work even more. That interpersonal relationship, that connection,
Mhm.
uh, just amazing. I said that's how fights are. Fights are an aspect of a personality. It shows, right? You could tell somebody that's aggressive. There's no defense; it's all offense, right?
Yep.
You can tell, fighters who are conservative, who are fluid,
Mhm.
uh, you know, um, and that should come out in a fight.
Yep.
So and
And what are
publicly
you
on
what are you
Twitter.
doing? Are you focused on the other person, or are you focused on
Yes,
protecting someone? And the circumstances are different. Are you looking at one
yes,
person? Are you looking at three people? And are you dealing with Ralph, who is a wall, or are you dealing with someone who's your size? Or are you dealing with someone who's smaller than you? And then
yes,
how do you react to certain energies? And we used to have people in LA, this, you go into 7-Eleven and it's kind of late and someone's like acting all freaking a fool. And, there's so many times where I'd just be like, dude, shut up. And it was such a novel situation. Everybody else was carrying away. And then someone would step up, me. And, I was bouncing. I was very, very confident in myself in stepping in those situations. Um, and I was like, dude, stop. And they were like, "Oh," because someone called them out and they dressed a
Yeah.
little bit crazy and they were acting a little bit crazy and all of a sudden you got set up with something that was real and it was different.
Yeah.
And it's always about how people react. I always
And
found that the
Joel,
most
people can feel your energy, right?
oh yeah,
They can
yeah,
feel that energy. Is this
yeah.
someone that I have the potential to take, or someone I should back off? Right?
It's like
Like you.
two dogs. We always when I was bouncing, and even sparring, we always called it alpha dogging. Who's the alpha?
Mm,
You're establishing dominance. Who's coming in and you see dogs do it. So you're like, oh, what's this energy thing he's talking about? Well, it's not no cosmic, thing.
no, no.
It's just, if if you're paying attention to a dog in front of you and its hackles come up, you start going, that's maybe not good. And it's
Right.
kind of the two things. So we're animals and people, if you just watch two dogs doing it, they're posing and everything is coming up, and then there's a big fight going on. Well, people do the same thing,
All the
and
time.
someone gets dominance. And I found it in bouncing all the time, where a guy would come up and start doing something, and you just shut him down. And then afterwards, they wanted to be your best friend because
Yeah.
you were the alpha, and they were like, "Hey man, what's going on? What's going on?" And all that posturing was posturing. And then once the hierarchy was established, all gone. They wanted to be
Yeah.
your best friend. And it happened
Oh, that's
so
cool.
many times. So many
And you
times.
never threw a punch. You never threw, and
No,
that's the thing. A
no.
lot of those
I
the
hit people,
fights
but I hit
already.
people on the shoulders. I hit people on the shoulders to twist them and move them and then
Yeah.
lock them. I mean, I was bouncing. I wasn't street fighting. I always had that in reserve. Uh, I headbutted a guy. Don't ever headbutt people. It's a stupid move. I've kneed some people. Um, but yeah, like doing what I do now, no, like there's no throat punches, there's no eye gouges, like there's no elbows to the head coming in. There's none of that coming on because you're just destroying someone, and I don't feel I have the right to do that unless you're a direct threat to my family or to someone
Yeah.
I'm protecting. If I'm teaching a kids class and you come into the kids class and I think you're a real threat to those kids, you better believe you're going to get hurt. But if I can, and I have so far been able to use that. And again, I haven't used it in 12 years, and I don't expect to use it in the next 12 years. But yeah, I can do it, and it's nice to have that comfort. And the same thing if you're talking about, which something you talked about earlier. I think it's just the confidence to be able to, when you were talking about creating, and I like things to be a little bit more loose now,
Yeah.
and just sort of give me a direction and cut me loose, because you're confident in your skills and your abilities because you've tested them over time. You don't need
Yeah.
it to be in the parameters of, okay, we're sparring with hands only. All right, you got big gloves, mouth guards, it's a 2-minute time limit. Okay, we're giving you a lot of parameters, a lot of given circumstances for you to work in.
Right.
But in martial arts, do you people see why I have Ray on here? Because it's good and it inspires me. Inspires me. All right, I've got
Yeah.
another one
Same.
for you.
Okay. Well, let's go. Let's go.
Who's an artist you wish you could meet, alive or dead? Is there someone that's like you're like freaking? I'd geek out. Like if I could meet this one,
Mm,
obviously, so like for me, I'd meet Bruce Lee.
yeah.
Founder of GQ. He died 5 days after I was born. It's like, well, can I
Wow.
go meet Bruce Lee? That would be pretty freaking cool. Um,
That's
who
an
is
easy answer for
somebody?
you.
What's that?
That was an easy answer for you.
That was an easy answer for me. That's an easy
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
I might meet there's some other people I might meet as well, but as far as being an artist in that world, but who is somebody? Is there somebody you can think
Hmm.
of that's maybe in the industry now or was in the industry 50 years ago that's passed away,
Right
or
now.
somebody is in a different country?
Oh well. Wow. That's good. So well, the first thing
Like
that
have
popped into my
dinner with
head,
and just hang out with, have them come over
and
and hang out
just
with you and Shayla,
that would be
and
cool.
just yeah, just well, that's how I learn about mate
Um,
with anybody. Is just come over and
no,
hang out
well,
and
that's how I feel like if we're really friends, like I've sat and had a meal with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, because online you get that kind of false friendship kind of thing, and some
Hmm.
of them actually do turn out to be pretty real.
Hmm.
But I think very few are like that. But if we sat and I used to say if we broke bread, right? If
Oh
we
yeah.
then you're definitely in the friend group, right? Like actual friend. But no, it would be Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. Brilliant. The stuff
I
that you see from
I
DC. Do you know?
the name sounds familiar, and that's for somebody like me. I don't
Yeah.
know anybody's name. Like if I don't know you personally, or I haven't done and even half the time when I have read a bunch of stuff, like there's very few people I do, just because I don't hold names like that. I've got too many names floating around in my head already. So who is he, and what has he worked on that other people would know?
All the iconography from DC Comics, like the Superman we saw growing up, and all the
Hmm.
stuff that was like on like merchandise, he
Hmm.
drew all that. He drew all of that, and a lot of his designs. He basically was the artist for the style guide that
Hmm.
DC had floating around for 30 years. You know,
That would
so
that would be pretty amazing to just sit there and break bread, as you say, with a
yep.
guy like
And
that.
he's alive now, and he does a little
So
bit
if
of
you're
work for
listening,
Rancho.
Ray would like to hang out with you. And I can tell you this, Shayla is amazing at cooking.
Well, yeah, she's yeah, she's got some good meals. He was
There's
able
some
to
good
do
meals
that on a
happening.
trip. Yeah,
What's that?
for sure. She did that on a trip recently. She cooked some of my favorite stuff for her aunt and uncle and cousins. So
Nice.
I was a little jealous. Anyway,
I, I'm jealous. I've done it. Let's go into let's see what. All right, what's a project or a character you'd like to work on that hasn't been done? Something from a movie or a book? Because I was reading some of your other stuff. Um, outside of our conversations, I was seeing some of your more professional conversations, and it inspired me to this question because you have worked on a lot of stuff, and you've worked in ways that I was like, oh, I didn't realize Ray was doing that. And talking again about you being a storyteller and wanting to tell these stories, and I guess that's the one. What's something? Is there a character that's out there that you're like, wow, I'd like to develop that in its own spin-off? And because you have worked on some of those things where it's a side character coming over here from
yeah,
a comic, and some people like this is the main comic, and then character G, they're not even ABC, the character G suddenly
yeah,
is part of this other comic, and then all of a sudden the fan base is like, and someone grabs
yeah.
onto it and then creates their own story from it. We always have the spin-off TV shows and the spin-off characters. Is there a character that you would like to do that with that
Oh
hasn't
yeah.
been? Which one can you
Um,
say? Can you be like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna do
No,
okay.
absolutely. And it's from a movie. So I don't know how much you follow Michael Jai White, but he did a movie called Blood and Bone, and
Hmm.
he had the main character that he plays, Bone, is such an interesting character, and I was like, I'd love to do a comic based on his further adventures. So that would be one of my top like
If you
things
don't,
to
Michael
do.
Jai White is a martial artist as well, very much so like Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, and a lot of those guys, where he is a legitimate martial artist
Oh yeah,
and
he's a
and
real
doing
deal.
movies, and that's a kind of changing things up. Whatever you think about them as an individual or the product that they're putting out, in my world, you look at it, are they a real martial artist or are they not a real martial artist? Because there's a lot of really great actors who are great storytellers who are like, I can't fight. We
They
go
just
do
make me look
chore-
good on film.
the, we do choreography. We practice a whole lot, and that guy over there makes me look amazing. That's all I know. Those guys all make me look great.
Yeah.
Matt Damon is one of those. He did all the Bourne
Yes.
movies. He's like, I no, that guy can. I don't know how to do anything. Um,
So,
yeah.
do you
So
ever watch Scott Adkins' podcast where he interviews? So, oh, that's
he's not on my highest level. He is a legitimate martial artist. He's a bit more flashier than the world I come from. Um, he is he's in a lot of he's done quite a lot of movies, and
yes,
he was in the Ip Man movies with Donnie Yen. Also, those guys are a little bit more performance based martial arts.
yes,
They do have they do have legitimate training, and experience. It's not like they're just an actor showing up and learning it on the fly on the set. And that's what I mean. So they do have a martial background, and they're, he's an extreme athlete. He's really, really fantastic that way. Um, do I think he would do good in a fight? Maybe not. I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but uh, but given that, there's a lot of stuff that he can do that I just would be like, I can't do that. I'm sorry. I just that's not my I can't.
But it's great on screen, though. I mean, but
It
that's the
looks
difference, right?
phenomenal on screen. It looks
Right?
phenomenal on screen, and I think that's something that what is he doing? He has a skill set that is telling the story. And do
Yeah,
we all watch the movies and love the movies?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For what I do, most of it, everybody's like, "Oh, this is Bruce Lee." Bruce Lee's a great example of that, of being a storyteller. He had to do the opposite. So when you're on screen, you have to say, here's the punch, and then
yeah,
here's the pose and look really cool. Just like in the comics, that's what we love is when you're doing it, you get, like you say, it's got to be good looking and I
yeah.
want to see it. And then that's going to keep me to read the story or to listen to the dialogue. And Bruce was amazing at that, but that's not how you fight.
Right.
In,
Because
in
there's
a
a
fight,
difference.
it's like, what was on this one? Oh, there's a guy on the ground. Wait, well, how'd he get there? I don't know. No, I was just walking by. I didn't see anything. Who is this? There's a guy on the street. Oh no, maybe I'll go call some police. And you're the guy that knocked him out. I don't want
Yeah.
anybody to see that I punched somebody else. I don't want them to see it for sure. And I'm not going to come out and be like, Kamehameha. We're not going to be doing some Dragon Ball over here. We're not going
A
to be
fight that
calling it.
lasts 7 episodes. No,
Yeah, the
fights
last
last,
7
what,
episodes.
20 seconds?
Yeah.
You know what I I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but most
Dragon
people,
Ball
when they
Z.
see the
Like, again,
movie,
we're going Dragon Ball, Dragon
yeah,
Ball Z. Get into that. We're they're iconic and they're great, but we did sit there and watch it,
yeah,
a 20-second fight that lasted for 8 episodes.
yeah.
Um, so all right, so that's a really cool one. Um, uh, So I'm going to wrap things up with a few personal questions. And we're going to use the last bit as a little segue into the possibility, and I'll touch base with you before I make any big announcement on that. But are we on for? Did you talk to Anthony about next week?
I did. He may be doing a show.
Okay. You know
So
what? We'll work it out for later and do it. It doesn't have to be then. We can do whenever works for you. It's not a big deal. So I will tag that in there because it's freaking cool. And I've got
yeah.
cheesy pun catchphrases coming up to you. So going into
Yeah,
a
my
couple things.
birthday
So
buddy. I got to see how he's doing.
uh, how has your art made you a better person, a better
Hmm.
husband, and a better father?
That's a damn good question. I don't know. That's something that I actually probably have to think about, but off the top of my head, uh, be, well, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I'm gonna reverse that a little bit.
Yeah,
Um, because she's already been in here and I know this, and it's a shout out, Shayla. It's a shout out.
yeah,
Um, how much of your success is due to the woman in the other room?
all of it. To
Yeah.
me, I mean,
Yeah.
and it's the first thing I tell people, like all of it. When we talk about any relationship, it's a partnership. That's it. There's,
Hmm.
if you're not partners, I don't know if you're gonna fail, but it helps to meet each other eye to eye on the same page. You root for them, they root for you. They have your back, you have their back, and
Hmm.
it's all about. Um, it's not even just support structure. It's called we're doing this together or not at all.
Yeah.
So,
We're going
uh,
someplace as a family.
yeah.
And I think with Catherine, it's the same thing of coming through there. I find my ability to open a martial arts school and be successful and do all that has made me better. And I guess we could reverse that. How has being a father made you a better artist?
Oh, that all the time, dude. Like I get picked to do work where I'm working on kids. Have you noticed?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's because it's firsthand. I mean, first of all, I do feel a certain way about that time period. Let's say between 10 and 18.
Hmm.
That's when you're starting to figure out who you are, right? It's the quintessential coming of age kind of
Hmm.
thing. And kids are the most flexible, adaptable, but they're also the most volatile.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And yeah, so and they teach you things about who you are, things that you
Oh,
thought
absolutely.
didn't matter, right? So
Yep.
that's I would say that they have helped me become better, a better parent, also, especially if you listen, and every kid's different, right? Quinn and Elliot,
Yeah. Yeah.
different kids,
Totally. My kids are totally
right?
different setups for either, but the rewards, I think, Ray, and I was doing this with my son today, um, of listening and just really listening, and when sometimes you can put that stuff across aside, and so there's a question down. There's two questions. There's two things comments down here I just saw, and I'm going to get to those guys. Um, uh, but yeah, coming into to just being a better person, being a better martial. I do find so I felt like a power up. Um, like I said, I trained with some high level people in Los Angeles. I was working security, so I was applying it and using it and honing those skills. And you know, I have extreme confidence in what I can do. Wasn't even when he was born. When Catherine was pregnant, like, it was like, "Oh, now here's why I'm doing something." The passion for what I'm doing, and that just went to a whole different level for me. So, the
Yeah,
passion of it, and now, like I said, we're fighting over a parking spot, yeah, whatever, but you turning into superhero, super dad
yeah,
is doing that, and that's what I tell my students, like, "Oh, yeah, hey, you're sitting there. Well, great. Probably if we're fighting over a parking spot or we're just hitting it, we just fight right now. I'm going to win. They're not
yeah.
going to put money on me. But you're a different person if you think I hurt your child." And all the dads, all the
Oh,
dads and moms are like, "What?
yeah.
What? I will, these are like the
Eviscerate you.
check. You'll write the
Yeah.
check." And I found that a big one for me. So a couple things in here. Steven Gilchrist, my buddy, he's in Atlanta. Was from Oklahoma and is a really amazing person. He says, "Love these questions, energy you're giving, Ray." He's a super fantastic. You guys would have a great conversation too. Actually,
Oh,
Steven,
that's
I
awesome.
interviewed Steven because he has these great questions, and so as a student, he's asked me these amazing questions, and that's very high praise for you, Ray, coming from him. I think you're amazing, but you're my friend.
Well, yeah.
Um, and then Kenergy Prime, is there a writer you would like to have a discussion with?
Oh, yeah.
I guess it's from a book, I'm guessing, or even I guess the writers in comics, or is there?
Hmm,
Yeah, because you said also you take a lot of inspiration from books. Is there
yeah.
an author you're like, whoever you want to pick?
Um, well, Gary John Bishop. I'm reading his books on. Well, one of my favorite books that he's written is um, what is it? It's got an F word in it, so I don't know if I could say that.
All right, go ahead.
But
Yeah. We're not child friendly on this one.
oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah,
But
so
it's
it's posted for adults.
yeah. If you look up Gary John Bishop, I don't want to say because a kid might be because
Okay.
I have kids who
It- it-
follow me.
yeah,
So
there is the other part of that. It is the other part of that of coming through there, and I think it goes into what you're doing with it, the appropriateness of what you're doing as an artist and putting out there. Is it f bomb? Blah blah blah. Is the character going into that which as adults, and was as much information out there and going through all the different ones? Yes, we've read that. Yes, we've appreciated that. Yes, we've watched that. But at the same time, when you're getting into those younger years of doing it, same thing when I'm teaching class, how I teach little kids, I have a conversation with them in this dialogue in this language.
yes,
My teenagers have a different language. I actually pulled out some old music for like soundtracks while we were in class, like, hey, and like I started playing it, and I was like, whoa, no, 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 no. I
yeah,
was like, all right, we got to do it. And I
yeah,
had to go back through and start like really cultivating through some of the stuff that we were listening to in high school and college. And I was like, oh, I forgot this was that bad. And the
yep,
kids are probably all listening to it on themselves on their own, but that's not my place to put it out there for them.
that's
And
it.
it's a different
Yeah,
thing. What you're doing yourself with your friends and exploring who you are as a person, one thing. but I don't want to be that influence. And Ray, it's another reason I've always wanted to have you on here is you are that positive influence, and you always strive to be that positive influence in everything that you're doing, whether you are a person, as a husband, as a father, or as a professional, as an artist, trying to put that positivity out in the world. And it's a great reason to have you on here. But I'm going to, speaking of you being a dad, I'm going to use this as a segue to end up and for people in the other thing and give an extra plug. So when we put this up, we'll put all of Ray's ways to follow him down in the comments section, or not in the comment section, but in the description. And please do check him out. He's got great art out there. Support him by buying those things and doing stuff. You can, I don't know, are you doing commissions still?
I will be after May, because now I'm taking a break from the freelance work for hire stuff for Marvel and DC. I'm 100% working on my own IP now.
Nice.
Yeah. A lot of people have been waiting for that. I put it on the shelf for a few years because I started working on Star Wars stuff, and I started working on X-Men and all that cool stuff, and I was like, well, I can wait. This stuff will still be there.
It's tough to turn down really cool projects that have
really
paychecks
is.
attached
And
to
the
them.
Companies know that.
Yeah,
they know.
They're like, Ray, do you want to come work with all these other cool people? And you're like,
yes,
I think I do.
I think I do.
So there's gonna be great ways. And check out the Comic Cons and do follow Ray, because I know he's at a lot of them. And come up.
Although I won't be any this year. I won't be at
none this year. Okay, so none this year.
I'll be traveling, but it won't be for Comic-Con stuff. It'll be I'll be doing some teaching stuff, but I can't really talk too much about that. So
okay,
but yeah,
NDAs.
Yeah,
non-disclosure agreements. Can't talk about those things. But do follow out and see what he's going in. And then maybe you can ask your own questions when you get to him. Hopefully you enjoy this. Segue time into our wrap up.
Yes.
Which is freakish. All right, I got to say it's freakish. So speaking of you being a dad, you not only draw superheroes, you are also the father to one. Your son, Anthony, has superpowers. So Anthony is 5'6" and can dunk with no warm up like it's nothing. The guy flies through the air like a superhero. I saw it on your social. I was like, was that Anthony? And you're like, yeah, he's 5'6". And I was like, he's what? Because I haven't seen Anthony since he was like
a baby.
He was little. But he's on Instagram, and it's Eyes on Height. We'll put that down in the description as well. It'll be just really cool. So check that out. I mean, it's just a cool. It's crazy to see someone, and like you say, it's that inspiration. Again, it runs in the family. The inspiration to well, maybe I can jump like that too. And just because I'm
not all the time,
not just just because I'm not 6'10", I might be able to dunk a basketball. And there's the hard work that he's put into to be able to do that and all that. But yeah, that's pretty cool. So hopefully we can have a father-son where we can have Ray with Anthony and we can have me with Elliot, and it'd be just a fun thing in there. Elliot's like, what am I going to talk about? I'm like, well, it'll be fun. You'll be there, and it'll be really cool. And then he'll talk about a million things.
See, there you go. That's awesome.
Ray, is there any closing thoughts that you would like to share with everybody today? I loved having you on here and just catching up with you.
This is so much fun. This is good. Best way to spend my Saturday. You know what? And here's the thing. Joel and I have talked, as you guys kind of got a glimpse of our conversations in the past. Like, we would just talk about all kind of things. But,
hours.
Yeah, easily. But just try to be a positive influence in the world. That's kind of it. With so much negative crap going on out there, we need more positive. I mean, and that's the thing. There's potency in both. The better you are, that stuff is kind of like the right virus, right? Like you're good, and then you're good to the next person, and good to the next person, instead of absorbing all that negative stuff that's out there and reacting in a bad way, and then you're spreading that crap. Don't do that. Go the other way, And
I gotta say, in the Jeet Kune Do world, there is a lot of that, and it's one of the things is why I wasn't into this world, a decade ago, because I got in. There's a lot of toxicity in there. And I said, whoosh, I'm just out. I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to focus on what I'm doing in my schools. And I'm coming back in, and it's kind of tough, but I'm trying to wade through all of that. And again, having you on here and the positivity of martial arts for me and getting away from the negativity. I can disagree with people, but that's fine. We were talking about Scott Adkins. I'm not the hugest fan of him. However, I can really appreciate what he does, and I actually like him in the movies. Um, we have differences as martial artists, but as an entertainer for what he's doing with it, I think he's phenomenal. He's done some amazing things. As just an example of that, it's a positive. It doesn't have to be a negative for anything.
And Joel,
And
you hit it right
yeah,
there because you were able to enjoy what he's bringing without
hmm
agreeing with everything he is, and
absolutely,
that's it.
absolutely,
You
yeah.
know, so
And there's going to be different things, just like in art, when you're doing something, you know, I may not like this particular art, but if you haven't noticed, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of comic art out there
yeah,
in what's coming in. And it really, like you said, what's attractive to you for the cover art. I was sort of thinking about is, how do you dress up when you would go up? I'm going to dress this way to attract this type of person, but I'm going to dress this other way to attract that other person. The
yes,
story might be the same thing. Me in one of my t-shirts is one thing, but me in a suit is a different thing, even though it's still me.
yeah,
Or me in a
exactly.
swimsuit, in flip-flops. It's a different me depending on or not necessarily different me, but who's going to come talk to me and who's going to be
Yeah,
attracted to me. And I think for any of those situations, whatever we're doing, the positivity. And Ray, thank you so much, and sharing your insight and sharing all of everything you have. And we'll go ahead and wrap things up, Ian. So everybody, thank you. Tune in next time, and hopefully we'll have Ray and his son Anthony on here with me and my son Elliot. All right, everybody. Goodbye.